Thank you very much, Bernard, for this kind invitation and all the organizers, and welcome to the newcomer to this community. So I will talk about things that some of you already know, and maybe it will be to present them from another perspective and see what are some issues and challenges following from this observation. So I will. This work is based on two works that I recently appearing here, and I will talk first about the notion of push-forward measure by a polynomial mapping, then its application to polynomial optimization, then to volume computation, and then I will end up by comparing hierarchies of upper and lower bounds. So what is a push-forward measure? It's quite easy, an easy concept. So suppose you are given a subset omega of Rn with a Borel measure on omega, lambda, then the push-forward measure denoted slash lambda. The push-forward of lambda by a measurable mapping f that sends omega to R is just the Borel measure on R defined by the, if you take a Borel set B on the line, then the measure by the push forward is just the pre-image of B, the measure by lambda of the pre-image. Very simple. So see, you have a set omega. Then by push forward, you go from R3 in this case to R. So if omega is compact and f is continuous, it will be a compact interval with a minimum and a maximum of f. So this is f of omega. Sorry. So suppose f is continuous. So what is interesting to notice that the support of the push forward is just the interval, could be a union of disconnected interval. It could be the interval f the lower bound and f the upper bound on R. So f star and f up star is just the minimum of f on omega and the maximum of f. So when you're in optimization, it's interesting because this is just the maximum and the global minimum and the global maximum are just the endpoints of the support of the push forward. Okay. Another nice feature of the push forward is that the moment of this push forward measure is very easy to write. It's just so it's a univariate measure, right? So it's power moment Vj push forward. It's just the f of x to the power j integrated with lambda over omega. So you immediately see that if f is a polynomial and omega is a simple set, I will say what simple set is, then the moments of j of the push forward are obtained in closed form. So the push forward in general, it's not easy to compute the density, but we don't care. As long as we are interested only in the moments, they are easy to compute from the measure lambda and the set omega. So if omega, for example, is a box, a simplex, an ellipsoid, or any image by an affine transformation, then it will be easy to compute. In principle, let's say easy to compute. But already a warning, even if the computation seems to be easy for simple sets, it can be very tedious. So for instance, if we integrate a polynomial by just expanding the polynomial in the monomial basis, okay, think about this polynomial here, you expand it in the monomial basis, for which then you have a closed form formula for each moment. Then the expansion of a trivariate polynomial of degree 20 contains already 3,542 terms. And this is only for 3 variables and then degree 20. So imagine, for example, if you have a large number of variables and even a moderate power, this could be quite challenging. I will come back to that later on. So what could we be interested in the push forward measures? The take-home message of this talk is that in some cases it can reduce a difficult multivariable problem on omega to, in principle, easier univariate problem on f of omega on the image. And you know the devil hides in the details, and there is no free lunch in general. So there is a price to pay, or where are the difficulty moved to by doing this? But simply, as I said, is the difficulty now is how to compute integral of the form f to the power k on omega efficiently. So for example, even if, as I said, even if omega is a simple set, think about the box, a sphere, simplex, even the upper cube. and f is a polynomial, this can be, in principle, it is easy. From a mathematical point of view, there is no difficulty. If you expand in a monomial basis, it's a trivial summation of terms, but this expansion can be very, very tedious. So this will be the challenge. I know there is people in the room who are interested in this kind of computation. For example, I will take two examples for which the push forward is interesting. For example, volume computation. Suppose you have a set omega defined by a band f of x less than 1 and greater than 0, where B is some simple set, a box, an ellipsoid, a simplex, and omega is a compact set contained in B, and f is a polynomial. And you would like to compute the volume of omega. Okay? But then, equivalently, this is the same thing as computing the interval, the push forward measure of the interval 0, 1. Now you are back to computing a univariate volume with respect to push forward. Sorry, there is a mistake here. It's not lambda, it's push forward of lambda. Okay? And we will see that we can do that by just knowing the moments of the push forward. We don't need to know the density of the push forward. And this leads the following generic univariate problem. Given moments mu of a Borel measure mu on the real line and an arbitrary interval AB, approximate this mu of AB as closely as desired. And there is a multivariate analog. Given mu alpha moments of a Borel measure mu on Rn and an arbitrary set, level set, intersection of level set, omega, approximate mu of omega as closely as desired. We'll see that this reduces to computing the largest generalized eigenvalue of a sequence of two univariate moment matrices of increasing size. Second example will be optimization. So suppose now omega is again a compact set of Rn, f is a continuous function, and consider the problem of computing the global minimum of f on omega. Again, recall what is the push forward. You have seen that the push forward sends omega into an interval of the real line, okay? And the minimum and the maximum of f are just the endpoints of this interval, okay? So then, equivalently, if you would like to compute the global minimum or the global maximum, it would be just maximizing z whenever under the constraint that d belongs to the support of the push forward. And both are univariate optimization problems. This is the generic univariate problem. Given moments mu j of a measure mu on R, find the left and right end points of its support. Okay? Then again, if all moments of the push forward are available, in particular when omega is a simple set, for example, Rn plus, a box, an ellipsoid, same place, hypercube, or the image by mapping, then this will reduce to computing the smallest, or largest if you maximize, eigenvalue of a sequence of two univariate moment matrices of increasing size, again. So in summary, if B is a simple set, f is a polynomial and lambda is a Lebesgue measure, for example, or it could be also the Gaussian measure or any measure. So for volume computation of the set f between 0 and 1, or B is a simple set, then global optimization, the analog is computing the minimum of f of x on B. Okay. The univariate formulation by the push forward is just computing the push forward of 0, 1, the interval. And for optimization is minimizing z over when z belongs to the support. Okay. And for both volume computation and optimization problem, we next see where are the difficulty moved to, because both problems when they were initially described, those problems were in general NP-hard and difficult to solve. And now we go to a univariate problem, but it doesn't mean that they are that easy either. So where are the difficulty moved to? And we'll see what's the difference between the multivariate problem and its univariate formulation. So we start with the sequence of the converging sequence of upper bound for optimization. So let be sigma of xt, the convex cone of some square polynomial of degree at most 2t. Let lambda be a Borel measure whose support is exactly omega. Okay. And we know that there is a converging hierarchy of upper bounds. Monique has done some talks about that also. That for every t, we are going to compute the upper bound on the global minimum by computing rho t. What is rho t? Rho t is just minimizing f sigma lambda, integral of f sigma d lambda. Sigma is the unknown now, in red. This sigma should be a sum of square. Okay. It should be a polynomial density because it is positive, and the integral should be 1, so it's a probability density, and we minimize f sigma d lambda. So it's not difficult to see that rho t is of course larger than the global minimum because sigma d lambda is a probability measure on omega, and so if f is greater than f star on omega, then the integral is greater than f star. Okay, and that's common. So when you increase t, because you have more flexibility for your density, of course, sorry, it's the reverse. Rho t plus 1 is less than, I made a mistake. This one should be here and this one should be here, sorry. So you have a better and better bounds as long as t increases. In fact, if you look at the dual of this problem, because this is a semi-definite problem, the dual has just one variable, theta, which is the dual variable associated with this constraint. Okay. So the dual will read, you maximize theta under we always explain what are those two matrices. About this matrix, which is completely known, this one is completely known, and then you look at the largest theta such that this one dominates this one. This means that the difference of the two matrices is positive semi-definite. So what is this? The first matrix here is called the moment matrix of order t associated with the measure lambda. And this matrix is just a localizing matrix of order t associated with the measure lambda and the function f. So this is just computing theta, computing rho star t and theta, then it's solving a generalized eigenvalue problem for the pair of matrices, real symmetric matrices, mt and mtf lambda. Warning, the size of such matrices when t, for given t, the size of such matrices is quite large, it's n to the power t. Okay, so the moment matrix, I recall what is the moment matrix. It's a real symmetric matrix, whose row and columns are indexed by alpha, and then insert t, sorry, and or t, and see here, and the entry alpha beta of this matrix is just the moment alpha plus beta. The localizing matrix, same thing. There is an f missing here, sorry. Is mf lambda for the entry alpha beta is just now the same thing as here, but now we multiply by f. Okay. And look, notice that all these matrices are simply stated only in terms of the moments of lambda. Okay. And computing the upper bound rho t is just finding the largest general eigenvalue of those two matrices. So again, if omega is simple, set f is a polynomial, then rho t can be computed easily between quotes. Typical example of such a simple set are box, simplex, ellipsoid, hypercube, or the image by affine transformation. So the nice thing is that, in fact, not only it's an upper bound, but when t increases, the upper bound decreases to the global minimum. Okay. And in addition, if you express down those two matrices in terms of the basis of polynomial which are orthonormal with respect to lambda, then rho t is just the minimum eigenvalue of the moment matrix expressed in this basis. But still, you have to compute smallest eigenvalue of a real symmetric matrix of size n plus t n, which is kind of difficult, right? So just an illustrative example, if you look at the most skin polynomial, or two variables, which asks for global minimizer in the box. The SOS density of degree 24 is this, and you see that the density picks up at the 4 minimizers. Okay? And in fact, when you increase the degrees, the sum of square density tends to mimic the Dirac at the minimizer. So it becomes sharper and sharper. So in a series of papers by Declercq and Laurent and some collaborators, they provided detailed analysis of the convergence of the upper bound to the global minimum. And in a number of interesting cases, they were able to prove a rate of 1 over t squared, rate of convergence. Now, what is the interest of going to the univariate case instead of in the multivariate case? We have seen that the previous hierarchy of upper bound is only stated in terms of moments of the reference measure lambda. So in our univariate setting with the push forward measure, the set omega now is replaced by the set f of omega, which is an interval of the real line. And the reference measure lambda on omega is now replaced with the push forward on f of omega. Again, the omega here with lambda. Then you, by the mapping f, you go to a small interval, some interval of the real line, whose endpoints are the minimum of f and the maximum of f. So, applying the above methodology to compute the upper bound on the minimum is that now you do exactly what you did in the multivariate case, but now in the univariate case. So Roti now is the infimum of, you look for a density, a univariate density, right? Polynomial density sum of square. You minimize this sigma z dv under the constraint that this should be a probability measure. Again, the dual is a semi-definite program, which you have only one variable theta associated to this constraint. And now you look at the generalized maximum eigenvalue of two anchor matrices, HT of z lambda and HT of z push lambda, which are the moment matrix of the push forward and the localizing matrix of the push forward with respect to z and to lambda. Now, what's interesting, for the same t, observe that now you have univariate anchor matrices, univariate, of size t only. Okay? And recently, Slot and Laurent have also proved a similar log square t over t square rate of convergence for this upper bound. So, in summary, in multivariate formulation, you start with omega, which is the Vorox ellipsoid in a simplex. You want to find the global minimum, and you have a hierarchy of upper bounds. Or now, for each, you look for density sigma, which are sum of square. But they are multivariate density, right? In the univariate formulation, you have now the global minimum as this simpler expression, meaning z over now the support of the push forward. And again, you have the same parallel, you minimize z sigma, but now with respect to the push forward, under the same constraint. Now it's a probability measure, but now you have in a univariate case. So, in the dual, the multivariate formulation, you have this generalized eigenvalue problem. What do you need to solve this? You need the moments of lambda on omega. In general, you have them in closed form, so this is easy. But then you have to solve an eigenvalue problem with moment matrices of size O and T. This is hard. In the univariate formulation, you have something completely similar, but now the moment matrix and the localizing matrix are anchor matrices, because we are in the univariate case. And now what do you need to compute the theta here? I mean, the Roti. You need not just the moment, but the moment of f to the power k, d lambda on omega. Tedious. But on the other hand, now you solve eigenvalue problem with matrices of size OT only. So normally this is relatively easy compared to this one. So you see where the difficulty has shifted. It is, the big difficulty here is just this, solving a very large size generalized eigenvalue problem. Here, the eigenvalue problem is not very difficult, but you need to fill up the entries of those matrices. And to fill up the entries of those matrices, you need to compute those numbers. And this is scheduled. Now, before going to volume, link with three diagonal matrices. Again, for the push forward, once you know the moment of the push forward, you can always define the orthonormal basis of orthonormal univariate polynomials with respect to the measure of push forward. Those polynomials which are univariate satisfy this. Okay. So if you express the moment matrices of the push forward in this basis, now this matrix is just the identity, and then the localizing matrix with respect to the polynomial z in this basis is just three-diagonal, because we now use the fact that the orthogonal polynomials obey some three-terms recurrence relation, which is very classical in the literature on orthogonal polynomial. So when you multiply by z, you have a nice recurrence here, right? And that's why the localizing matrix with respect to z is just three-diagonal. It's called the Jacobi matrix. Okay, so the Jacobi matrix is infinite, but when you truncate for the localizing matrix, you find this three-diagonal matrix. So in this basis of orthonormal polynomial, computing the rho t, the upper bound on the global minimum, is just computing the smallest root of some orthogonal polynomial t plus 1. So when you know the moment of the push forward, you know this univariate polynomial, and you can compute the smallest root. So the take-home message of this is that the global minimum or maximum of a polynomial omega on a set omega, on a simple set omega, can be approximated from above or from below as closely as desired by a sequence of upper bounds going to the global minimum or lower bound going to the maximum. And the first one is the smallest root of some univariate polynomial, and this one is the largest root. And again, computing the polynomial Tj requires computing the moments of the push forward. Volume computation, the same approach for the volume computation. Remember that general approach to approximate the volume of a set omega in Rn contained in the box B. One simple idea is to do Monte Carlo sampling on the box B, and you count the number of points that fall into the set omega, and the ratio will provide you with an estimate, random estimate of the volume. Or a deterministic approach, which will provide a sequence of upper bound, is to compute the volume like this. You start from this formula, is the maximum now over the measure of phi supported on omega, and dominated by the Lebesgue measure on B. So it's trivial to see that the solution of this problem is just the restriction of lambda to omega. And this will be the volume of omega. So the first one is simple because it can handle potentially relatively large dimension, but on the other hand, it provides only a random estimate of the volume. You don't know if you have an upper bound or a lower bound. The second one is more involved, but it offers some guarantees. And associated to this formulation, you have a moment sum of square hierarchy of upper bounds, which provides a monotone sequence of upper bounds. And this upper bound converts to the volume from above. So the additional linear constraints coming from Stokes' theorem applied to phi star accelerate the convergence, because if you just use this formulation and you apply the moment SOS hierarchy, the convergence is very slow. Now, if you use this formulation plus additional constraints, because you know what the optimal solution is, so you can impose some Stokes constraint to the solution, and this significantly accelerates the convergence. And this hierarchy requires, to compute each rho d, you need to solve an SDP with moment and localizing matrices of size OND, like for optimization. And this method is limited to problem of modest size because of this size here. So what do we do? What do we gain if you go through the push forward measure? So again, suppose that f omega now is your set defined by the sublevel of polynomial f, for example, and the lambda is the push forward by f of the Lebesgue measure on B. Okay, so you have the set, you have the box B, by f is moved into this interval of the real line, and the set omega by f is moved to an interval of the real line with maximum and minimum, right? So we have seen that the moments of the push forward are easy to obtain in principle, and now observe that f of omega is just the interval 0, 1. Okay. So the volume of the push forward of the 0, 1 interval is just the volume of omega. So computing an n-dimensional volume rho is computing the one-dimensional measure of the interval 0, 1, but for the measure, the push forward measure, not for the Lebesgue measure. So again, we can apply the same methodology as for the Lebesgue measure. The volume of the push forward measure of 0, 1 is just the max over all measure phi dominated by the push forward, okay, and you maximize its mass. Okay, and you impose that the support of phi is 0, 1, but this is basically a constraint we know how to do it by SDP. Okay, and we know that this problem, the optimal solution is very easy. It's just the indicator of 0, 1 of z d lambda is the unique optimal solution of this problem. So when you have replaced the computation of an n-dimensional Lebesgue volume of omega by computation of a one-dimensional push-forward volume, now of the interval 0, 1. The value of rho can be approximated as closely as desired by solving appropriate SDP relaxation associated with the moment SOS hierarchy. Univariate analog with now moment and localizing matrices of size OD as it increases instead of ON to the power D. However, since the convergence is typically very slow, because you cannot use Toth constraint as we did in the multivariate case, because here you don't know the density of lambda, of the push forward. In the homogeneous case, we can do much better. And now assume that f, for example, is a homogeneous non-negative polynomial of degree t, and you want to compute the volume of its level set. Then the methodology above we can do much better because a simple reason. We know that the optimal measure we look for is this one. Okay, so the moment of the optimal solution of the problem is this one, and then we look for the mass of this measure given by those moments. Okay. Now, if f is non-negative and homogeneous degree t, then by Stokes theorem on the multivariate problem, we are back to the multivariate problem, and we look at this version of Stokes theorem. Okay. This is the gradient. This is the vector field x. So forget about the details, but if you look at this integral, okay, on omega, it reduces to an integral on the boundary, but of this polynomial, but this polynomial vanishes on the boundary. So this is why this integral is 0. And if you develop this integral, you find that it is just equal to the n times the volume of omega. When this quantity, again, you see here the moments of the push forward. So all in all, to summarize, we need that for each j fixed, then you have the moment of the push forward, the moment of the restriction of the push forward to 0, 1 is entirely given as a multiple of the mass. Okay. Okay, so the moment of phi star, the optimal solution of your problem, is just given this. So the only unknown is the mass of this measure. All of the other moments are expressed in terms of the mass. Okay, so if you look at the moment matrix of this measure, all entries are known, and you need just to multiply this by the mass that you don't know. So the volume, the univariate formulation in the case of homogeneous polynomial gives you that the volume is just max of phi. You look for a measure of phi support on 0, 1 dominated by lambda. Okay, and this is the same as maximizing theta. Well, this matrix is a moment matrix of this special measure. So again, you have a generalized eigenvalue problem univariate. with respect to two matrices, the moment of the push forward and this one, which is given by those entries here. Okay, and by doing this, you try to find the mass of this measure. And again, you can prove that when D increases, this decreases. This decreases to the volume. Just to show you how this helps having those Stokes constraints. Suppose F, just a toy example, but just to give you an illustration, take two variate examples. So the volume is pi. In this case, you take the X, F is the, so this is the level set one is just the disk of volume pi, right? If you go to moment of order 2, this is what you obtain for your two matrices, and you already find that the tau one that you compute by the methodology, you're already very close to pi, right? If you take moment of order 4, you're already at 3 pi, almost pi, right? Whereas if you do this without Stokes constraints, you see a very slow convergence. Rho 2 is just 3.9 instead of 3.14. And the same thing for if you go to, this is for 4 variables, and even for, you can go to, I don't remember, and variables here. And you see you converge, the error after very few moments is very, very, very small. Okay. In conclusion, the push forward approach is quite interesting, provided that one is able to obtain the moments of f to the power k efficiently. There are cases where you can do that efficiently. There was a nice paper by Loni, Bern, Loera, Koppe, and Bern, and describe cases where it can be done in time polynomial in input data, but for the simplex only. Okay. For example, if you fix d, an integer d be fixed, and you have an unitary encoding of d and m, you have a certain simplex omega in Rn, not necessarily full simplex, d-dimensional, and you have a polynomial f of degree d, so d is fixed, but now f, in fact, is a degree d polynomial of linear form. So you could have a lot of variables, but f sees only the variables through some d linear forms. Okay? Then, computing this can be done in time polynomial in the input side for fixed d. But I know that in the audience there are some people like PLRS who are doing other methods to compute integrals on set like that also, not of this type of method. So now I end up my talk with comparing the SOS hierarchy of upper lower bounds. It's a 2-3 slides, not very long. I hope it will give you some insight on what's the difference between the two hierarchies. So remember, we are again interested in computing the global minimum of f on omega. Omega is compact, assumed to have a non-empty interior. Let lambda be the finite Borel measure whose support is exactly omega. Again, same story. Let T alpha be a family of polynomial orthonormal with respect to lambda. Okay, so these are given in principle. So now I write, I define a polynomial, I write a polynomial of degree 2t in the basis of orthonormal polynomial. So sigma of x is expressed as a sigma of sigma alpha, the coefficient, times the orthonormal polynomial T alpha. We don't work now in the monomial basis, but in the basis of orthonormal polynomial with respect to lambda. So we can define the Riesz functional as we do for the monomial basis. It's a linear functional on the space of polynomial, given a sequence sigma of coefficient, right? So we define L sigma to be a linear functional that acts on polynomial in a simple way. Is the image by L sigma of a polynomial P is just the sigma of P alpha sigma alpha, whereas the coefficient is just the L sigma of T alpha. Okay? So this defines a linear functional. And now we can define a pseudo distribution on omega. We define a pseudo distribution on omega is a sequence sigma such that the moment matrix sigma is positive semi-definite, and the moment matrix of localizing matrix with respect to Gj is positive semi-definite. And you can really express this in the orthonormal basis, but not necessarily. Okay. Then the sequence of lower bounds for the global minimum can be interpreted like this. We have already seen that at the beginning. Rho t is when you want to compute a lower bound. Okay. Now, sorry, we did that for the other one. For the lower bound, we can now interpret the moment SOS hierarchy. Now it's just you look for a density. Sorry, you look for a polynomial sigma of degree 2t. You want to minimize now f with respect to this density, probability density, but which is signed, because your probability density, okay, is of this form, not necessarily positive, but these coefficients are particular. They are pseudo distributions. The coefficient, so you look for a density, a polynomial density, not necessarily positive, but the coefficients of this polynomial density are very special. They satisfy those constraints. Okay? Then you can prove that this is exactly the moment SOS hierarchy. It's exactly can be interpreted as looking for a polynomial density which is signed, not positive, but the coefficients of this density are very particular. For the upper bound, it's very similar setting. Now you look for density, polynomial degree, polynomial density of degree 2t. Okay, probability density, again like this. But now it is, of course, you can express this in the orthonormal basis, but now you require the sigma to be a sum of squares. So it's another constraint on the sigma, but you just require that the whole polynomial is a sum of squares. So you see, and now you have a positive polynomial density. So it's exactly the same setting. In most settings, you look for a density, a positive density for an upper bound, and a signed density for the lower bound, but it is a signed density with a specific coefficient that satisfy, which are pseudo probability distribution on omega. So when the step t semi-definite of the hierarchy of lower bound is exact, okay, which happens generically, one obtains, by solving the exact relaxation, when it is exact, you obtain an optimal signed density solution sigma star of degree 2t, and this x is exactly the Christoffel-Darboux kernel. You recognize here the Christoffel-Darboux kernel, and the coefficient of the density sigma x, which alpha is just the value of the orthonormal polynomial T alpha at the global minimizer. Okay? And if you evaluate this polynomial density at the point xi, so you obtain xi, then you find that this is a reciprocal of what is called the Christoffel function associated with lambda. Okay, so that was just to try to show you an interpretation of both density of both keys within the same framework of
we had some connection problems at the end. We cannot hear your conclusion, in fact.
Okay. I hope it was at the end.
Yeah, yes, just the end. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Do we have questions? So questions, you can unmute your microphone. You can write questions in the chat.
I have a question for participant, otherwise.
May I ask a question?
please, Monique.
Hello, Jean. Thanks a lot for the nice lecture. I would like to ask, so the push-forward approach for evaluating the volume, it applies because you have a special set where it's only f between 0 and 1. So I guess you could not accommodate doing the volume if you have more polynomial constraints, correct?
Yeah, you can do it. It's more intricate, but instead of having a univariate, you would have to push by several polynomials. So now you would have, if you have two constraints, for example, not with the same f, okay? Then you have to push by the first constraint and to push by the second one, so you would be a bivariate. You push to a bivariate measure.
Okay.
Otherwise it would be similar.
Okay.
But you are not univariate anymore.
Yeah, you reduce the number of constraints.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Jean-Bernard. Can you also consider other measures than the Lebesgue measure?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for the volume, yes, clearly, because what you need, in fact, what you need once you are in the univariate case by the push forward, you need only moments of the push forward, which are obtained by moments of the initial measure. So if lambda is not the Lebesgue by another one, it's the same thing, except its meaning is different. It would be the Gaussian measure of a set instead of being the Lebesgue measure of a set. But yes, it applies. Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Oh, John, can I have a question?
Hello.
Yeah, hi. A numerical question. So you have to solve these generalized eigenvalue problems with some very special matrices. So are you some special techniques for that?
If you have the yeah, for example, if we go back to the trivariate setting, but this. See, for example, here, if you know if you know those orthonormal polynomials, which in principle are in a univariate case, they are not so difficult to compute once you have the moment of the push forward lambda, you can compute those polynomials. And once you have those polynomials, the Hankel matrix is tridiagonal, and you need to compute just the minimum eigenvalue, and this can be done efficiently for trivariate. There are papers about trivariate symmetric matrices. Not even symmetric, by the way, and where there are special techniques for computing the smallest eigenvalue. But still, you have to compute all the orthonormal polynomials. So maybe it's better to keep the generalized formulation, this one, with two Hankel matrices, they are not tridiagonal anymore, but this avoids so what you know the entries. You avoid computing the orthonormal polynomials, but of course the generalized eigenvalue problem is more complicated probably.
Still the matrices are structured for the Hankel matrices, so maybe.
Of course, yes. Yeah. So I don't know if they take into account structure like Hankel structure. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have super fast algorithms for computing smallest.
Even for Hankel matrix?
Yes, for this Hankel matrix, and in fact for the univariate polynomial. So this is the root of this orthogonal polynomial of order.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is good news.
The complexity could be quasi-linear.
Okay. So again,
may I ask a question to Jean-Bernard?
Yes, sure.
If you use the push forward measure hierarchy to approximate the minimum of the polynomial on the simple set, you need the moments of the push forward measure.
Yes, that's right.
But in most cases, the most efficient way to compute this would be by knowing cubature rules for the simple set. But is it still the case that the minimum value of the function on the cubature nodes will be better bound than the bound you get from the generalized eigenvalue problem.
That's well. Frankly, this is a good question, but I don't think I have a straightforward answer. I don't know actually.
Yeah, well, not true, right? Because that would always be less work than getting the moment.
But you can still also use the cubature to compute the f of x to the power k, the integral, right? But you need a lot of points, right?
Yes. Yes, but I mean just that if you just don't use the push forward measure, but you just use the measure on the original space, then it is the case that the minimum value on the cubature point is a better bound than the hierarchy.
This is Vianello, no? Or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Vianello paper, right?
Yeah, but so the question is if this is still true if you use the push forward measure.
Frankly, I don't know. I don't know.
Good.
But I would like maybe a message also talk would be that it would be anyway interesting to look at this problem of where is it? Yeah. It makes sense that it would be nice to have a class of polynomial f and sample set omega. Of course, where the minimum problem is not clear, for which this could be computed efficiently. For there are some cases we know how to compute efficiently, but it would be nice either to have a box, but then maybe a restricted class of polynomial, like I don't know, binomial polynomials, you know, a difference of two monomials, kind of things, where the minimization problem is still non-trivial, but the integration would be much easier. Right, anyway.
Okay.
Other questions? So the question about free lunch and what Etienne was discussing before. So the simplification you obtain by reducing to this univariate measure, which is a push forward via f. Then you also have this problem that is just here, computing these moments efficiently. And maybe what is the complexity here if you need to do it?
For example,
so don't you gain? Don't you have this exponential complexity coming back?
For example, no. For some cases, like the paper by Baldoni, if omega is simplex and f is a special form, it is independent of the number of variables, depending on the degree of f. But and k times the degree in this case. But you can have my guess is that in general this shows that integration is as difficult as optimization. But there can be easier cases where this integral can be computed efficiently. That would be now my guess. And of course, it's not true in general. You have to find a nice combination of class of polynomial and set omega for which this can be done at least for sufficiently large k. Because for the univariate case in the Hankel matrix, you need to go to very large power maybe to get good upper bounds. There are not that many computational experiments with this actually. Maybe we should ask Pierre Lerès about this kind of integration where he has some methods to compute integrals on sets like that.
Well, no, I don't really know, but what I know is that if you consider the generating function of the moment, then it is an integral with a parameter. and you can compute a differential equation for the generating function,
Yeah.
which tells you that you can compute all the moments in a number of arithmetic operation which is linear in K. Yet the size of the differential equation hides the exponential.
Okay.
Because the size of the differential equation will be d to the n, where d is the degree of f and n the number of variables.
You were mentioning that maybe for quadratic f, it could be different?
But then for quadratic f, a bit different. If f is special with many singularities, and maybe it will be different. Then it's like generic degree bounds. It tends to be pessimistic, and as soon as there is more structure or singularities, then it drops.
Okay. So maybe it's an interesting challenge for real algebraic geometers, this kind of integrals, right?
Yes, no, it's an interesting challenge, and I'm working on implementation, so I will keep you updated about my progress on implementing this.
Probably from a numerical point of view, it's also a challenge, no?
Maybe, yes.
Getting accurately these moments.
And it's really a purely computational problem because mathematically it's a trivial problem. When omega is a simple set, you just expand the monomial basis and you get the result. So it's a trivial mathematical problem which is difficult numerically. Okay.
Thank you. So if we have no other answer or questions,
actually, I might have a question.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Hello. My question is a bit related to Monique's question. So if we have a simple set and in addition to, let's say, simplex, we have some equality constraints, not inequality. Is there any maybe advantage of incorporating them in comparison to additional inequalities, or it only gets worse?
Yeah, I think now if you have an equality constraint, suppose you have one f and an equality constraint g equals 0, then if you push, you have to push by f and g, and then you would have a push forward measure with two variables, and you would have a constraint on the second variable to be 0. But you would have to compute the moments of a bivariate measure, but you push by two polynomials, g, f and g.
Yes.
So d1 and d2. So now you have to compute the moment of the push forward will be the whole combination of d1 to the power I, d2 to the power j, integral. Yes. Okay, so it goes to f on the domain, and if you know how to integrate on the domain, you get the moments of the push forward, and then on the push forward, the domain will be z2 equals 0, and you minimize z1.
I see.
But you need still to compute the moments on the variety g equals 0 on to get the push forward, right? But
yes.
It will be bivariate.
Yes, I see. Thank you.